excited. I was wondering because I work in film, and it was really cool yesterday to see a picture of the women and all of the cast and how much diversity has finally been added into Marvel. But I'm really curious about behind the scenes, because that's where I work, and I want to know what you have seen as working for Marvel, what you have seen behind the scenes, because that's something that the general public normally doesn't see. Like, what kind of diversity is there? How many women are being hired to work in production and things like that you've noticed?
I'm just gonna say we're not always necessarily in the production offices. But I feel like there's a tremendous amount.
I feel like there's, as far as like my first meeting over there, I think was, and this is not gonna just be about women. It's gonna be about everything. I walked in because I had gotten a phone call from the Russos, from Nate Moore, from Kevin Feige when I was in Zurich, and they were like, we want you to do the role. So when you get back to the States, like, come in and we can meet and talk about what we want to do. And immediately when I walked in the office, because I didn't know who Nate Moore was, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know who he was. He's a black guy. So I was like, because you can have this preconceived notion about who's behind the curtain a lot of times. And when I met Nate, I was like, oh, shoot, he's this black guy behind the curtain. And then getting in there, you're seeing people do all the different jobs, editing jobs, special effects, production. The women are throughout that at Marvel. So it's not, and not only that, Latinos throughout that at Marvel. So I feel like they are, for the most part, making changes throughout that. And when they're doing different movies, there are different crews, different production heads that are part of, they're assigned certain movies. So there's a Nate Moore on Thor, there's whatever movie's being done, or Guardians of the Galaxy, they're making sure that there's somebody in every position as far as what I see. Now, I don't know the whole staff, but I definitely feel like it's not just in front of the camera, or, it's not just the writers of the comic books either, which that's changing. They just hired 2 new writers for the Black Panther novels, Black Panther comic book, which they're female, so it's definitely changing.
Do they have a lot of white dudes that everybody
Still a lot
thinks
of white
are
dudes.
Jewish? Are there a lot
Don't
of
worry.
faux Jews at
Don't
Marvel?
worry. White dudes aren't going anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's still a lot of white. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry about that. And that's the way I was taught directing. And in the process of doing that and having her as a teacher, Vera Katz as a teacher, Henrietta Edmonds, Al Freeman Jr. played Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. Those were my real influences. As far as, and I say that from a very visceral standpoint, because a lot of times people look at other actors and say, oh, I want to be like them, but you don't really know their process. You don't know what, what techniques are they actually using. What is their perspective on the craft, unless you've actually studied under them. Or if you work with them, sometimes you can tell what they're doing. But I would more so say my teachers than pick out some actor that, like I always wanted to be like Robert De Niro or Denzel Washington. Like, that's fickle in a way to me.
But do you want to be like Robert De Niro?
Of course. He's still working. Man, I told you, white men ain't going nowhere.
Yes, you're right there in the back.